Winology, The 48 Laws of Winning by Raymond Hardy. Chapter 32. If you can't win, don't lose. Do not be afraid to walk away from mediocrity. Win isn't accepted practice, and the majority present administration is unwilling to change. You have to always put yourself in a position to win. That's a quote from Big E, aka Coach Eric Jones. You were not born winners nor losers, choosers. That's a quote from Devin Wayman. Choose not to lose. Winning is a lifestyle. That's a quote from Big Ray. Somebody has to lose. It doesn't have to be you. That's another quote from Big Ray. You can't beat everybody, beat somebody. That's another quote from Big Ray. If you can influence the outcome of the situation, then let it go. It's not for you to handle. That's a quote from Marcellus Reed. Sometimes when operating in seamlessly losing situations, it may be easy to get weary, discouraged, lackadaisical, or lackluster in enthusiasm. A man once said, "The worst bank account in the world is a man who's lost enthusiasm." Keep the faith, stay strong, stay committed to the task at hand. Sometimes it's not always about the score at the end of the game, more so about the energy, effort, and resources utilized to complete the event. Sometimes you win by not quitting and finishing the task or event. Sometimes you win by improving performance or productivity from the beginning to the end, while simultaneously setting the tone for future endeavors. Sometimes you can win by dominating and annihilating your opponent, circumstances, or situations. Other times, reality sets in and you realize that you are proverbially beating a dead horse or riding a donkey in the Kentucky Derby, so to speak, on your current project or placement. No matter how much effort you extort, it's not making a difference in productivity because the powers that be are associated with the project are unwilling or incapable of making a change for the better. You don't possess the authority to change or move them. This is when business decision has to be made. Never set yourself up for failure. When when it becomes evident that you are riding a donkey in the Kentucky Derby, it's time to change stables or running mates because that's a behind whipping waiting to happen. You don't have to go down with the ship, contrary to popular belief, especially if it isn't yours. There are plenty more where that came from. The same effort it takes to get a rowboat or a dinghy can be used to get a yacht or a cruise ship. That's a quote from Big Ray. Life is about choices. You make some good decisions and not so good decisions. Other times there are consequences and repercussions. Make conscientious choices, decisions that will put you in a position to win, regardless of popular and public opinion. Every battle is not yours. Never enter a battle, competition, or contest where there are no spoils, reward, or a chance of coming out victorious. Somebody has to lose. It doesn't have to be you. Choose not to lose. That's another quote from Big Ray. Here's a special note. Some people in some places, markets just don't want to win, will vehemently oppose you as well as despise you for the wisdom of your ways for trying to win and bring a positive change for the common good of the team or the community because winning changes things. A lot of them are complacent with the status quo. When you begin to win it, you will bring attention and shed new light on your program that sometimes exposes inadequacies, hidden agendas, or idiosyncrasies, nefarious activities, misconduct, or wrongdoings behind the scenes of those associated in leadership that previously went unnoticed with lower media coverage or fan participation. In addition, winning will sometimes cost extra that wasn't allocated or planned in the original budget. A lot of people approach situations from a fan or consumer point of view and fail to see the business perspective or administrative ownership side of things. Here's an example. If your favorite college football team makes it into the playoffs, most of the time they won't make money. It will cause a deficit with all the associated costs in performing in these events: travel, lodging, food, entertainment, and more. Another example is if your favorite pro football team makes it to the playoffs or goes to or close to the Super Bowl, the team owner will have to pay each individual player a 45-man active roster, 7 and 10-man practice squad, approximately 250,000 for each individual game past regular season, in addition to performance bonuses, incentives that may be achieved with extra participation beyond the regular season versus going 8-8 and having a 500 season, filling up their stadiums or arenas and making a profit. Beware of these people that do not want to be exposed, embarrassed, or implicated on charges of misconduct, maleficence, of offense, of office, will go great lengths to sabotage your program or plot your demise before you can let that happen. Just like Judas, they would claim to be with you, support you externally, while internally scheming and plotting to set you up for failure or take the fall on their behalf. That's why in some smaller markets, they don't like outsiders, because sometimes not only see things for what they are, but also for what it could be, oftentimes represent change, new energy, and new beginnings. From my vast experiences, I have seen instances of where administrator stole, purposely misplaced the men's basketball uniforms prior to the season and tried to make the players play in female uniforms, which would subconsciously belittle, demean, demoralize, emasculate, and distract the players from their goals and aspirations. In one stop along my journey, a group of seniors decided to throw the last game to avoid going to the playoffs because it required them to practice in inclement weather and cut into their illicit activities off the field. Another stop in my journey, a principal scolded our head coach for aspiring a young man to turn his life around, to achieve greatness and seek higher education, trade, college, or graduate from high school. The principal told the head coach not to fill his head with such foolishness, and that this particular young man was a college or trade school material. Even though he was an all-district defensive lineman and a pretty good mechanic, and that he had a job set up pitting cotton on his farm after the graduation. Our head coach inquired as to what was our purpose for being there if we weren't going to teach and motivate the kids to achieve greatness, higher education, or get more out of life and take advantage of his opportunities. The principal replied that everybody wasn't made for college, and that the player didn't have the amplitude, and that he would end up flunking out and end up right back at home. Another situation along my travels, an administrator informed our head coach that he had $5K budget to use for uniforms and equipment. But right after the coach purchased some new helmets to upgrade the depleted inventory for safety purposes and to improve the image or morale, he was told to slow down on purchases after he ordered some new uniforms and had spent up to 2.5K of the budget. He was told to stop because the money was gone. When the coach inquired as to what happened to it, because he had receipts for all his purchases and had only used half, the administrator indignantly replied, as if he didn't like being questioned and held accountable, that he had used it to repair the bus because we were going to need it for travel to away games, even though we use a private contractor for transportation, paid for through the school board. Nevertheless, the writing was on the wall that we weren't going to be there for too long. As a former teammate of mine said, he was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Begin the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. That's a quote from Aeneas Williams. Begin with the end in mind. When you enter into new situations, have your exit strategy available, because all things in life are temporal or temporary. Chances are that we will not be in one spot forever. Sometimes you have to change your atmosphere to change your year. That's another quote from Big Ray. Sometimes in order to change your situation, you have to change your location or your occupation. Another quote from Big Ray. Here's one more special note. The same effort it takes to make dimes in one market can be used to make millions in another market that's fertile and receptive to your theories and thought processes. That was chapter 32. If you can't win, don't lose. If you like anything I said in this chapter or any of my previous chapters, comment below. Reading is fundamental. You know why? It funds the mental.